The next Evil Dead is filming soon. How's it going, guys? As always, I'm Jimmy Champane, and this is the channel where it's always Halloween. If you like monsters, slashers, pretty much anything inspired by movies from the 1980s, today's video is all about the next Evil Dead movie, which is called Evil Dead Rise. It was revealed about a year ago at this point by Bruce Campbell, who's just doing random interviews and revealing brand new movies, and it's going to be written and directed by Lee Cronin. He was handpicked by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell to make this movie after they saw his film, The Hole in the Ground, which is an A24 horror movie that was released on VOD, and I honestly think it's like a little bit underrated. It's really good, it's a Changeling movie, it's super dark, and I can kind of see why they would want him to do an Evil Dead movie after watching it myself. The biggest point of contention for this movie, and I'm sure you've heard about it at this point, is that instead of focusing on Ash or Mia or Kelly or Pablo, or Brandy I guess, because that's Ash's daughter, this one is going to have a brand new main character. But the smartest thing they're doing is making sure that they keep that main character an everyday person. They're not just gonna show up and have all the badass skills they need to take on some Deadites. And I think that's what makes an Evil Dead movie an Evil Dead movie. The other big thing they're switching up for Evil Dead Rise is that instead of taking place out in a cabin in the woods, this one's going to be set in a more urban setting. And that lines up perfectly with the scoop I had last year from a source that I trust like 100%, who told me that the setting for this movie is going to be pretty much a skyscraper. It's going to take place in an office building. I think another word used was like an apartment type skyrise. And the movie that immediately comes to mind when I think about that is Joe Lynch's like criminally underseen and underrated movie Mayhem. It's on Shudder if you haven't seen it, but it stars Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving. They're in an office building where a virus gets released that makes people like insanely angry, and they have to fight their way to the top. And having an Evil Dead movie like that, where instead of like office workers who are just really angry, it's Deadites running around ripping people to shreds, it's coming together in my mind and it's painting a very beautiful picture. That's a movie I'd really like to see. And I just have to say, the way this movie has been revealed to us so far has been like super refreshing. Like, we don't even have a poster, we don't know who's casted in it, but Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi have just been dropping hints left and right, telling us exactly what's going on with the movie, and that's so much better than just a random press release. Like, I'm not even sure what studio's attached to this, and that's kind of the way I'd like to keep it. More movie creators should talk like this. It's kind of awesome. And that brings us to right now, because they're actually about to start shooting this movie over in Auckland, New Zealand. They've done a good job at hiding it, but both Evil Dead 2013 and the entirety of Ash vs. Evil Dead was shot in Auckland, New Zealand. So as far as modern Evil Dead goes, it's not going to be a huge change, which I guess is good. Now, as someone from Michigan, I would really like to see an Evil Dead project actually shoot there, because that would be awesome. But in the age of COVID, where we're currently sitting right now, Auckland, New Zealand is pretty much the best place on earth to shoot a movie right now. And that's because, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, they haven't had COVID really on the entire country for a long time now. Like, they're pretty much just done with COVID. I don't even know if they have mask mandates. So if they can get the entire crew and cast and the creative team over there and verify that none of these people have COVID, they can pretty much shoot this movie in the most normal way possible. Whereas if they shot it over here in the United States, or pretty much anywhere else where they're shooting movies right now, they'd have to go through all of these costly procedures to keep the movie rolling. Like, you saw what happened with Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies, and we don't need that happening on an Evil Dead low budget movie, you know? There's a very small but kind of weird discrepancy I noticed. So Bruce Campbell said that they're going to shoot the movie later this year, but according to Lee Cronin's Twitter, he's actually already over in Auckland and he's in a 2-week quarantine right now, which leads me to believe that this movie is shooting a lot sooner than later this year. Like, he's been writing it for a while now. I think the script has been done for quite a bit. So if he's already over there, he's in his 2-week quarantine, again, I just got to imagine that this movie's shooting sooner rather than later. Shooting sooner rather than later. That was a that was a tongue twister. I'm dying here. So I noticed on my last Evil Dead Rise video that there were a ton of comments from people who were saying, well, if it doesn't have Ash, I don't want to see the movie. And while I kind of get where you're coming from to some extent, I gotta say, it doesn't hold water at all. We already had the return of Ash in Ash vs. Evil Dead, and that was a great show. It had tons of practical gore, it had multiple episodes directed by Sam Raimi, they even went back to the original Evil Dead cabin. I guess this is kind of a hot take, and I can already hear the dislike button being smashed, but I gotta say, guys, watching a show a year after it's over on Netflix is not watching it when it matters. You gotta keep up with it as it's being aired on TV for them to keep making more seasons. That was the one thing that never seemed to penetrate with Evil Dead fans, even though Bruce Bruce Campbell was saying it every week. He was like, yo, we gotta get these numbers up. The show's not being watched enough, even though we get good reviews every week and Evil Dead fans who do tune in seem to love it. Not enough of you are watching it. You guys begged for Ash to come back. We brought him back in the only way possible, and you guys just aren't delivering. And I see where he's coming from in that, and that I get why he wants to retire the Ash character, because they did it right and the fan base did not show up. That's just the problem at the end of the day. And I guess I'm gonna keep rolling with the hot takes, because I saw a few comments from people who were saying that because it has a female main character, it's woke and they're not going to see it. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. If you think having a female main character in a horror movie is woke, you gotta get a grip and grow the fuck up, or just stop watching movies, because that's straight up some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. And the craziest thing about complaining that there's a female main character in an Evil Dead movie is really just showing you haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead when it mattered. Even Evil Dead 2013 had a great female lead in Mia, but on top of that, Ash vs. Evil Dead had a great female main character in Kelly. She was great, a lot of fans loved her. You had Lucy Lawless playing one of the main antagonists in the show. She was also awesome. And then in the end of the show, they bring in Ash's daughter and people really liked her too. So like, I don't know what franchise you're watching, but Evil Dead's had a lot of main female characters for a while now, and for the most part, they've been excellent. They've been just as good as Ash. Like, if you want to see a horror movie that because it's so woke that it's basically a men-hating parody, go check out Blumhouse's Black Christmas remake they did a couple years ago. That movie sucks, straight up. But you can't compare it to Evil Dead 2013. You can't compare it to anything within Ash vs. Evil Dead, and I'm gonna guarantee that you can't compare it to anything you're gonna see in Evil Dead Rise. If I'm wrong, I'll happily eat my words on video and tell you, but they've never given us any reason to doubt them. Evil Dead 2013 was awesome. Ash vs. Evil Dead was also awesome. Sam Raimi had a female-led horror movie called Drag Me to Hell, which was really a spiritual successor to Evil Dead. And you know what that movie was not at all? Woke. It was fucking awesome. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. The one thing that really should be worrying you about Evil Dead Rise right now is that it's tailor-made to be a cheap movie. When you hear that a movie is going to be set in one setting, like an office building or a skyscraper, that should tell you that they're doing it on pretty much the cheapest budget possible. Now, as time went on, we did hear Bruce Campbell talking about how it's an urban, modern-day Evil Dead setting. So in my mind, yes, a movie where Deadites are running around an office building is cool, but a movie where they're running around an entire city and a main character has to fight their way through that city and get to a goal within an office building where they also have to fight their way to the top, that sounds like a much better movie. We don't have enough info to go one way or the other, but from everything I've heard, it mainly takes place in a skyscraper, and that just kind of worries me. Like, Evil Dead is a big name, it's a cool name, it's a name that has weight to it, so I'd just really like to see Lee Cronin and the team involved here have the budget they need to play around with. I don't want this movie to be neutered or cut down at the knees just because it doesn't have enough money. Again, we haven't seen enough to really judge one way or the other, but from what I've been told, it does take place in one setting. So I'm just gonna cross my fingers that they give it more money and let it really expand out from just a skyscraper. And as for when this movie's going to come out, since we're halfway through March and it's really just about to start filming, I would say it's definitely not coming out in 2021, probably early or mid 2022. What I would really like to see is them hang on to it and release it either in the middle of September or the middle of October if Halloween Ends does move to 2023. I would really love to see an Evil Dead movie around Halloween. And we got kind of close to that with Evil Dead 2013, but it hasn't really been done before in my lifetime. So that's something I'd really like to see in a theater during Halloween. Like, how cool does that sound? Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today on Evil Dead Rise. Make sure you let me know what you think of everything we talked about down in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and set your notifications to all. As always, my name is Jimmy Champane. I just hit my shelf, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Shape on. What's my outro?